Hey, chiropractors, welcome to Modern Chiropractic Mastery with your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, where we discuss the latest in marketing, business, and professional growth with some of the leading experts in the industry. Welcome to another episode of Modern Chiropractic Mastery. This is your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, and today I am bringing you an interview with Brian Wine from the Wine Group, and we're going to talk about real estate. It's something that we haven't talked a lot about in the 8 years of this podcast, and I really wanted to have this conversation. And Brian specializes in brokerage of medical real estate nationwide. They have a unique niche within the industry, the veterinarian industry, but they work with all kinds of other healthcare practices, and they do a wide array of services at the Wine Group, at anything from investment sales to lease and sale, lease back. We talk about a lot of this in the interview. Private business consultation, buy-side representation, and even things like maybe you want to potentially sell your practice and the real estate together. They also can help with practice sales and the combination of practice and real estate sales, which is common if the seller does own their real estate. But we dive into a lot of the nuances of when it's a great idea. Oftentimes it's a great idea to own your office real estate for your practice, but not always. We dive into some of the things to look out for. Sometimes we get narrow focus on really, really wanting to own our real estate because it can be great, but then we end up sacrificing the health of our practice to do so. So we dive into some of that as well. Some different topics around investing in real estate, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. And again, this is Brian Wine from the Wine Group, spelled W-I-N-E, and just really enjoyed diving kind of deep into the real estate side of a healthcare practitioner, that owns a practice and wants to own their real estate, and then getting to maybe a point, and I asked certain questions around that, of just investing in other real estate properties. And so we dive into all things real estate today. Before we do dive into that, I just want a couple mentions of things. I've got a student business course coming up in Boca Raton in my office, free for the first 24 people. We can hold 24, and it's gonna be a Saturday morning, November 22nd, where we're gonna dive pretty deep into all things business, as it relates to being a chiropractic student, probably more on the second half of your student career, or if you're an intern, a chiropractic intern, the stuff we'll talk about will be apropos for you. And that's going to be on Saturday, November 22nd from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. in my office. You can go to bit.ly/student chiro biz. That's a Z at the end, biz. I'll put that in the show notes as well. So you could sign up. Again, it's free. We do ask that we're going to put a credit card on file and not charge it unless you don't show up, unless you give us notice. Like if you just don't show up, we're going to charge $100 because we do have a limited seating on this, and we want people that are committed to coming to this. Now, DCs pay a good amount of money for this type of information, and so we are offering it for free. It is a high value for you, even though it is free. So it's not going to be fluff. We're going to really dive in and try to teach you business as much as we can. So check that out, bit.ly/student chiro biz. The Boca Raton, Florida. Even if you're not in Florida, but it might be worth a hotel night and a flight to come hear this information and work through certain things like the business of practice analytics, content marketing for chiropractors, strategic community outreach, and all kinds of other things on what to consider if you're going to be an associate, partner, owner. After graduation, we will dive into all the pros and cons and details of that. So check that out. All right, without further ado, here's my interview with Brian Wine. All right, excited to have Brian Wine on the show today to discuss all things commercial real estate. And as a private practice owner, obviously most of our audience is chiropractors, and he works with all different types of healthcare providers. But before we dive into the thick of real estate today, Brian, tell us a little about yourself personally and professionally, and we'll get into it.
I've been in the business about 10, 11 years now. We help doctors sell their business and or real estate across the country. The main specialty today are veterinary, so animal hospital, business and real estate, dental and behavioral health. We also do some chiropractic/physical therapy, and we also do a couple others as well, but we're really dominant in those three. When it comes to real estate though, I've sold it all. So anything and everything we help our clients achieve, whatever their goals are, is really the goal here. Um, I always say, ask any question, and we're here to help you answer those questions, because a lot of doctors, they're very good at what they do. They don't always know, you know, the other parts of the business, meaning the real estate and or the practice sale, what you guys all work really hard for. You know, it's either say make a better business, or it's, hey, one day I might transition or retire. And really that's where my team and I come into play to help you guys get to wherever that goal is.
Yeah, we recently in our medical building had a dentist sell the practice and the real estate. What does a loan like that look like? Two different loans. What are some of the details of that?
Yeah, I mean, if you own your own business, you obviously can get an SBA loan or an owner user loan. And, those rates depend on who you're working with. I normally outsource that to different loan brokers and make the loan brokers have all the banks compete with each other so the client makes more money, or really, in fact, saves on their rate. And typically I'd say, it could be anywhere from 10% down all the way up to 35% down, depending on credit history. And I'd say rates are anywhere between, if you're really good, very good credit and have a lot of cash in the account, to maybe bring some deposits over to the bank, and they do it anywhere from 7 to 9%. Obviously, some banks are really going to get you on some of these SBAs, but it really depends on the situation each borrower.
Let's say the buyers in good financial standing, they typically do like that combination of buying the practice and the real estate.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the real estate. So you have to also occupy, most of the time, 51% or more of the real estate to get one of those FDA loans.
Yeah.
There's also these owner user or conventional financing that you can do. You know, it's the real estate. I actually had this conversation with a fellow chiropractor last week, and he's like, Brian, should I buy this deal? Well, this client of mine owns, I don't know, 15 locations in the Northeast. For him, it makes sense because his goals are one day to sell down the road. And so for him, he wants to really build out the business, have several locations. And when he sells his business, he then can put awesome leases into play on the real estate. So, it really depends on the circumstance and where you're buying the real estate at. I mean, if you're 30% above market, I'd say maybe think about relocating, or maybe it's just not the time to buy. It again, every situation is different based on what's being thrown at you in the circumstances. Having a broker like myself or an advisor who actually cares about your best interest, not about just the paycheck,
Yeah.
will really benefit you, the client.
Yeah, it's important to know all those details. And we'll get to the surface level of it today in a podcast episode, but obviously it gets deeper and it gets the nuances of everybody's unique situation. But I want chiropractors to start thinking about this. And one of the things I guess would be right out of the gates, and this is, a lot of people maybe know this, but obviously be surprised as doctors, we spend so much time trying to be a doctor. We don't know the pros and cons of certain things regarding real estate. But what would be some of the positives or the pros for a chiropractor to buy their office real estate?
Pros are that you own the facility. So your rent's not just jumping to whatever
Yep.
number you want or whatever the landlord wants. There's also sometimes in a lot of the chiropractor physical therapy states that I see, they have condo units.
Mhm.
And so the HOA or condo association kind of dictates where you can go or can't go. Obviously it doesn't dictate, but some doctors have issues getting permits, or sometimes you want to do something to the unit, but you have to go answer to someone else. And I'm always a big fan of, hey, freestanding building is way better than average condo association. But again, the condo way of life in some of these major markets, sometimes it's cheaper to get a condo unit than it is freestanding. But again, it's just really preference. I mean, you charge your own rent. One day, if you're really building a business, meaning I'm sure you have a great business at a one unit location, but if you're going to add way more locations over time, there's ways to make even more money on your business if you're open to those ideas. The one location unit as well, there's opportunity. It just really depends on what makes most sense for you. The problem with buying a property is it takes a lot of cash out of your business or out of your personal, bank account. But
Yeah.
if you say it the right way and you get the right loan in place, that really doesn't matter. And you just have more control. There's no one bossing you around. There's a reason you started your own business in the first place.
Mhm.
The real estate part, I think, is a great piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, I think, I've owned mine for 12 years now, and some of the positives that I know of is obviously it's a big part of my fortunately, I bought it 12 years ago. It's appreciated quite a bit. It's a big chunk of my future retirement. My accountant tells me there's good tax benefits of owning. I couldn't tell you what that is. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off. I mean, there's depreciation and all these different things you can do with your accountant. Obviously, I'm just an advisor, but I'd always say talk to your accountant or financial advisor, CPA. They can probably break down even more depreciation that you write off your business.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that you put into that property and or business probably lowers your income. But again, talk to the specialist about that. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, no, it was good. We needed clarification on that. And obviously I think, owning the real estate provides a lot of stability for your practice. You mentioned that, your rent's not going to go up. You don't have to worry about moving. You don't have to worry about, I have chiropractors we coach where their lease is ending and they want to bring someone else in there. So it definitely provides a long-term stability. Let's take a break from today's episode and announce our first sponsor. This is going to be Propel Marketing and Design. I've known Darcy Sullivan for years. We've worked hand in hand on my websites. I don't trust anybody else to do this search engine optimization. She does a great job. There's so much to it. A lot of the lingo and the words are beyond my comprehension, but it's just amazing work that she does. And if you're really going to get results with Google, you have to make sure your website is SEO optimized. And I really don't want you doing it yourself as a chiropractor. So you just have to have this type of stuff done. And if you're looking to get more organic online traffic that pulls in new patients, Propel Marketing and Design is currently offering chiropractors who listen to this podcast a free SEO website review. The free review will help you uncover methods that will improve your website and boost your search engine visibility. Head over to propelyourcompany.com/chiropractor and schedule your free SEO website review. You won't regret it. She gets great results. Your website needs this. Your search results need this. Head on over there to propelyourcompany.com/chiropractor to get your free SEO website review. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, one of the things I'll mention that I've heard before that can be a con or a bad idea to buy something, and we can kind of piggyback off that, is that in the same way that office real estate, if you own it, can provide stability in your business, if you're not careful and you bite off more than you can chew, it can really drain your main practice. Have you seen scenarios like that? And then any other types of bad ideas that it is to buy something for your practice?
Yeah, I mean, doctors, clients of mine all the time say, Brian, what is a good price point to purchase a new property at? And we really look at your gross revenue because we also sell practices. So we really take a deep dive into one, your goal, and then also your practice. How well is the business doing? What is the revenue and what is your net profit or EBITDA, let's call it?
Yeah.
We really want to understand what the financial situation is before you get into a new property. If you said, hey, look, I have insurance money and I have $500,000, great. But, if the business isn't where it needs to be, or if the goal is, hey, I want to own a property like this, it's really looking at the financials and making sure you can actually afford the payments every month. If you can't afford the payments every month, it costs a lot to get into this. You could lose your livelihood and a lot more if you overextend yourself. I've seen some clients do it. by not listening to some of the advice I gave. And I've also seen some clients, I've seen clients do it and be successful because it really pushed them. But I've also seen the clients where they had to sell more assets and kind of exit some things because they overextended. So I just say to that, just be super cautious before you make too many, decisions. Because I mean, we recently worked with a client where at first I was like, hey, this isn't the best idea. But once we figured out their loan situation, the write offs, and, the lease term, it's not even a lease term anymore. They have their own property. So it made sense. But again, if it doesn't make sense or you think you're not going to hit that monthly nut, it's probably not worth it today. I'd say just take your time, wait a year or two, save more money, or get your business to the next level, and then, you know, go for it, is what I'd say.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure we talked about it because, there's a really, really good picture to be painted of why you would do it, and it's sexy and it can be a really good thing for your long term, but it can also, be a problem, and you gotta be a right fit because frankly, it could be a really good real estate purchase or deal, but it could be a bad business decision for your overall. And
Correct.
that's where I know you probably help doctors make sure that both of those boxes are checked before you make a move.
It's all about how well their financials, how well their business is doing before you decide, hey, let's just jump and own a property. Because if you can't afford the payment, unless you have all cash, which most clients, they rather save their cash for their business because there's more opportunity, more return on their actual business from the real estate. So again, it just got to make sense before you make that big decision and big leap
Yeah.
going forward.
And I know it's tricky, like if you're a chiropractor in San Francisco, real estate's a different ballgame than if you're in Missouri, right? And
Right.
it's just something you have to take into consideration, and maybe it just never makes sense, and that's okay too, as long as you're getting good lease deals. And I know you work with that with people, and you're getting good space, and you have a thriving practice, and just sometimes real estate just doesn't make sense for your scenario.
You're spot on again. I mean, again, what makes sense. We can also look at, if you have a good broker advisor in your corner, they could look at what the rent rates are today, what your lease looks like. Are you getting the best deal? Because I also work with other brokers that specialize in new opportunities. We're really here for the seller or
Yeah.
for, people exiting. But there's brokers out there that's just specialize on the new building or the new location. Again, it's really understanding what the goals are and then what the monthly rent and expense. There are insurance, there's triple net expenses that go along with all these buildings, just like the apartment or house you live in. There's property taxes, insurance, there's maintenance, sometimes common area maintenance. There's a lot of different things that make up not just your rent. It's that triple net or modified gross cover. You see it today in your current setup, but looking at all of that, figuring out what the market rents are, your broker advisors should do that for you. And if they're not, obviously you can call me. I'm here to help, but you should really think about all of these factors before jumping into the next opportunity or building that you own.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's take a short break for one of our great sponsors, TrackStat. It is a new type of software plugin for your EHR that combines patient communication, marketing, automation, and statistics with patient and employee tracking. Built by chiropractors for chiropractors, it shows your team what to focus on each day. See patient visit habits, missing information, unpaid bills, insurance collection visit average, and more. Great visibility of data so you can focus on filling your office with your best patients. When you can see what your staff and patients are doing or not doing and take action accordingly, your profits naturally grow. Take TrackStat for a test drive in your office with our free trial. Not a techie, no problem, we can help. To get started on your free trial, visit trackstat.org and watch the demo. That is trackstat.org. Little story and then kind of all work together when I heard you on. a different podcast, and it was just very informative. A couple weeks prior to that, I have a patient. He's not a healthcare provider. He's a successful entrepreneur, and he's done very well for himself. And one of the things he does now is he buys real estate that have leases attached to it. But he's like, I think one of them he mentioned was like Verizon Wireless Store, Starbucks, some of the bigger companies that they lease the space from somebody else, and then he goes in and buys the space, and he's got a lease attached to it. Now, with that being scenario A, non-doctor, anything, do you have any doctors that do that? Like they own a practice, or they own their real estate, and they're doing, they got money to invest. And are you working with some that are just going to maybe buy real estate from other types of private practices that are being leased?
I mean, we have doctors buying all sorts of property. I
Mhm.
mean, like you said, your client friend of yours, bought Verizon and Starbucks properties because it's leased by a major corporate. There are major corporates in all of our fields as well, and in the three verticals plus the chiropractic physical therapy, they're out there. There's great credit behind it. And then to your question, yes, they're doctors who sold to private equity. So they have a bunch of cash and they see what you guys see, a great business that's not going anywhere. So they start to invest and have investment property. Typically, they're more interested in corporate tenants, but I have a client recently, a physical therapist who bought into. There's a physical therapist selling her real estate. He saw the opportunity on the return and said, this is a great small business. I'm going to go buy that property. If she ever goes out, well, I'm just going to replace it with me.
Mhm.
So, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. Yes, there's doctors, there's, just investment buyers who want to buy into these deals. I mean, it really spans across the country of every type of person out there. I mean, we see it all: wealth managers, financial advisors,
Mm.
all different sorts of doctors, lawyers. I have seen it all at this point, people buying into deals. It just really depends on the deal itself,
Mhm.
what kind of returns there are, what kind of loan you can get. Those are really the basics, I'd say. And obviously location.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and it helps with a diversified portfolio for folks, and I'm sure you enjoy getting on calls like that and with some creative ideas with people that are looking to make those types of investments.
I mean, I have a fellow doctor. He sold private equity. He's a veterinarian. And he said, Brian, why don't I buy just one deal? I've
Mhm.
had, $2 million at cash. Why don't I just buy one, let's call it $5, $6 million deal? Because I can lever and get more. And I said, look, I don't think that's the best route. I personally think if you buy a 2 to 3 or 4 deal with the $6 million of cash, because then you diversify your risk. If you buy one deal and that tenant has an issue, then you're on the hook for all of it, which hopefully at that price point, you won't really have many issues. But if you buy 3 or 4 little deal and diversify the risk, if one goes out, well, the other three pay for that one. So it just, again, it depends on your risk tolerance and the goal, but there's a lot of different opportunities. That client today on 2 properties and he's on its way to buy another one. So, you know,
Mm.
there's just, again, it just depends what you're looking.
Yeah, and I guess, there's I forget the term, but like obviously someone will want it to cash flow. And so if you have to take out a loan on something, or they like, isn't there like a number? It's usually in the single digits that you look at for if something is going to cost this much to buy, the lease that it's got on it right now for rent, it will kind of be able to show if you're going to be able to cash flow that.
I mean, there's different things we can look at. There's rent to sales ratio, which is your rent versus the sale that you
Mhm.
do per business. If the rent in different spaces, in the restaurant space, obviously is geared towards restaurants, but if restaurants are 8 to 10%, I think in medical, in, BC office buildings or even under it, it's probably more like below 8%, probably in the 3 to 8. Every niche is a little different. So I'm kind of vague here.
Yeah.
Obviously we can talk, about different niches in the future, but I'd say, the rent to sales ratio, if you're way above that number, then you're probably having issues. Another thing to look at is your cash on cash return. Everybody got different visions of what kind of return they should be getting on their cash.
Hmm.
I'd say an older client of mine, above 65, they probably are okay with more of a safer return, something in the, let's call it 7 to 10%. Guy under 40, I've seen a lot of them just say, I'll risk it all because I don't have that much going on. And those can get up, 10 to 20%. Again, each individual, what they're looking for, there's obviously some more different percentages and things to look at. There's also a cap rate, which is a capitalization rate, and might be what you're
Yep.
seeking of and your return on your investment if you bought the property all cash.
Yep.
There's a lot of different metrics. Obviously, if you get a new loan, you have to bring the loan in based on how much leverage and what the rates are. Obviously, again, every situation is different. So I don't want to say, oh, this is the guarantee, but in today's day, you could probably get a pretty good deal for anywhere from a 7.5 to about 9.5% returns because again, the rates are high today. So
Mhm.
rates are anywhere from, let's call it 7 to 6.75 to 7.5%. I mean, I've seen it low as 6.1 to 4%. That client of mine has a couple million in a bank account, cash. So I'd say, the best rate's probably 6.5% if you're a good borrower or have good credit history. And then typically 6.75 to 7.5, depending on what's going on. But I think back to that loan situation, make the banks compete. If you don't make them compete, you're not getting the best deal.
Now, do you a lot of times work with, say, the doctor's financial planner as well to tie in the whole thing? Like, let's just say someone's got 500K to invest in something, and it's like, okay, do you invest it in the stock market? Do you invest it in buying real estate? Is that a conversation the three of you would have?
I mean, typically the financial advisors are not that involved. Some of them are the doctor, specific ones who know me in the space. They all are like, hey, you should talk to Brian. He really knows what he's doing. It really depends how involved these financial advisors are. Some of them get white glove service. They're on top of it and they want to do three-way calls, me, the client, and the financial advisor. Some situations, the clients are like, look, I need more real estate. I'm too stock market heavy
Mm.
and I want more diversification. Everyone's got, again, I keep saying that different goals, but it's the
Yeah.
truth. I'm on falls with some of these advisors, but also some of the advisors, I hate to say it out loud, but some advisors, they make money on how much you invest with them through the stock market. So, you know, there's some really good ones who will say, hey, yeah, you have too much with me, and they're really looking out for your best interests. But there's also others who, hey, just keep loading more with me because they make a
Mhm.
percentage. So again, it's hard to say what these advisors are or are not doing. I think most of the time they're great guys, but at times they obviously want more investment to make more money.
Let's take a short break from today's episode to tell you about the best decision I've made in my clinic in the last 10 years, and that has been adding shockwave therapy to our clinic. The outcomes have been really impressive. Certain conditions we were struggling with in the past, we're now seeing results with the shockwave therapy for that. And second of all, the ROI has been really good. You know, when you make a big investment in something, you want to see a return, and we're seeing that return in clinical outcomes and in our investment, and that's been really nice to see. I chose Keenest Medical for 4 reasons. One is the technology is top notch. You have to have great technology. There's a lot out there that isn't quite up to snuff. The second thing is they have a really good clinical training. They have an exclusive partnership with Academy of Shockwave Excellence so that you can become clinically proficient in shockwave. You do need to get skilled at it. I think that's a big differentiator between practices that are getting great results and seeing the ROI is they have a great clinical aspect to that as well. So you want to get trained appropriately. Third is they have in-house service team for all of your technical support, which is key when you're investing in a machine like this. And then lastly, they have a very in-depth marketing and business support for you so that you can launch this into your practice effectively, that you can get that ROI on it, that you can get the clinical outcomes. And they also have really good financing options if you need that. So go to kinasmedical.com, KINAS medical.com, mention MCM podcast and receive a free Shockwave in practice book with a purchase of a unit. So that's kinasmedical.com, KINAS medical.com, and mention MCM podcast. Now, we mentioned private equity. That seems to be a trend in healthcare, not just this year, but obviously over the last handful. Is there anything else that's trending the last year or two? I mean, obviously, we know that interest rates have climbed. We know that real estate in a lot of areas have increased. But is there anything else you're seeing as far as trends?
I mean, there's more private equity in these niches, chiropractic, physical therapy spaces than ever.
Yeah.
I think, some of the other doctor verticals have been tapped into, not as much yet in our state.
Mhm.
They keep going more and more, and the returns, they keep buying them up. I wouldn't say there's trends, but I just say if you are selling to private equity and it was a direct offer to you, I would just say, look, typically direct offers are the best offer. They're not competing against anyone.
Yep.
So I'd say use a guy like me, someone you fully trust as an advisor. And even with our fee, people are always like, hey, you made so much money on this sale, but pretty much every time, I'd say 99% of the time, we make our fee back and more. There's once in a blue moon where maybe we don't make our fee back, but we help clients really understand what's going on, which I still think is worth our fee payment because, if you have this direct offer and you don't understand some of the terms, you could be in for a long employment agreement with a boss that, well, you never thought you were going to have this type of boss. You didn't do your double checking. You
Mhm.
thought it was a great deal from the front, but on the backside, 2 to 3 years in, I have clients who say, Brian, I wish I used you. I wish I knew about you up front because I wish I never signed that deal.
Yeah.
So that's something I would just be cautious of. Upfront, every direct buyer, really every buyer wants to make a good first impression. They want to make it seem like everything's great. But if you're not interviewing the people who are going to manage you and really your bosses, I would just be super careful because it might not be the marriage you were looking for.
Yeah. I had chatted with a private equity firm at one point, not about anything in particular, but they did mention the real estate side of it and even something, and I kind of brought it up before we recorded, but they were looking at some point putting together a real estate consortium of some, some doctors. It's like, okay, Dr. X is selling a real estate. 10 of us are going to all chip in and buy that. Have you done any work with groups like that invest in different spaces?
Yeah, so I have a couple of groups today where they don't someone buy it with cash. They more so say, hey, look, I'm going to get you units, just like let's call it the stock market.
Yeah.
You own a mutual fund, let's call it.
Hmm.
You get units inside that business. So, for example, let's just say I was selling a chiropractic business, or let's call it property today.
Yeah.
The client, Dr. Joe, let's call it, he sells, they typically offer less than what the market really is, and they give you units. So let's just say you got I don't know, $700,000 on you think it's worth 1 million, the market probably 950, let's call it. They offer you 700,000. Some of these groups will offer anywhere between probably a 6 and 9% return on your unit that that they give you. So for example, if you sold or gave them $700,000 of unit, you would get an 8% or 6% return. If it was 8%, it'd be $56,000 a year. And then you own a piece of, they typically say, look, we had X amount of properties. Let's call it 50 properties. A good reason or a very thoughtful reason to do this is if you've got a couple years left with a tenant that you're not the user, say it's another business, it's corporate credit, and there's a couple years remaining, and you know that they're not doing as well. Well, if you have a piece of, let's call it 49 other properties, and they don't renew their lease, well, you still get your income typically. Again, every situation in the
Mhm.
documents show differently, but a couple of groups I work with today, they say, even if the tenant leaves your building, we will still pay you your return on investment, whatever that percentage is. So if it was 8%, that's 56,000 in this scenario under 7,000, you would get that until they decide to exit their fund. Typically, these funds say, "Okay, look, we bought it at such a," they don't typically say steep discount because they want to make it look good, but they'll say, "Look, we got it at such a good deal. We brought you in." And as the market evolves and changes and gets better, they show, pro forma numbers that we can maybe 2x or 2.5x our initial investment. So some of these groups on the front end will say, "Hey, look, we're buying it for 700,000 units and we'll exit at, let's call it, 2.1 million
Hmm.
for that property." Do I fully believe that's always going to happen? It's hard to say. It's really about looking at their track record and seeing if they've done it before.
Hmm.
They're overbuying some of their properties in this fund, meaning spending too much on units at not the exact worth of the property.
Yep.
You'd be super cautious. If your property, if you say to them, "Hey, I want to see your portfolio," and if your property is, in your opinion, I mean, most sellers, they always say theirs is the best, but let's just be honest. If you think at all yours is the worst one and they're overpaying for yours, then again, I would just be cautious, because if yours is the worst one, when you look at all the other beautiful properties and they're overpaying for yours, I wonder what they're doing on the rest.
Yeah.
Again, it's got to make sense. Will they show you all of that? I don't know. There's a lot of great groups out there, and obviously they want to do what's best for you and for them. Because on the exit, if they keep overspending, it's going to affect everyone in the group.
Yeah.
So that's one way to look at it. It's just, again, it depends on the backers, the main managers running this fund,
Yeah.
and on
Makes
what they
sense.
do.
Yeah. So let's fast forward. We're a doctor. We're looking to exit, and let's say let's make it independent of the practice right now. We're looking to exit from the realist. Well, let's let's reword that a little bit. Let's say we got two options. We're exiting. I'm gonna sell the practice, and I'm gonna lease the space out, or I'm gonna sell the whole kit and caboodle and get out of my real estate. I know it's a loaded question, but should the seller chiropractor, should they sell their real estate, take the money, and then reinvest in other things, or should they keep the real estate and rent it out and have that income coming in? Let's say this person has paid off the note, they own it outright. What, I know it's a tricky one and there's a lot of variables, but what are some things that you would talk to that client about?
So I know you said it was independent, but
Mm-hmm.
let's say let's say the business was apart, because there's so many different situations here.
Yeah.
If the business is apart and you're thinking about selling your business one day, I would say, no, no, no. You're not selling the real estate. I would highly recommend not to. So a lot of real estate brokers will cold call you or talk to you and say, "Hey, let's do a sale leaseback."
Yeah.
Typically, those real estate brokers do not know how well the actual business is doing.
Yeah.
And so it might sound really good on the upfront. "Hey, I'm going to get $3 million for my real estate that I can then pump into my business." But if your rents are too high, or you don't account for certain things, or you have a bad market or a bad year, well, you could be upside down in three. It depends how the stages go in your lease and your annual increase.
Yeah.
So that's one side of it. Back to the business. I know you didn't fully bring that in, but
Mhm.
I would focus on selling your business first.
Okay.
Get that sorted out. You get one shot. But that if you have a bad lease in place by doing one of those sale leasebacks, or selling to anyone for that matter, some of these private equity shops aren't going to be interested in your deal, because they're going to have to relocate you because you spent too much money.
Yeah.
Because again, your business might not be profitable, right? They're just looking for profit and making sure in 5, 10 years that they can make more money on your business. Their goal is to grow it, right? When it comes to the real estate, your other side of the question, look, if you're exiting the business, you own your real estate, sure, you've exited and it's vacant, at least that puppy up right away. Would get a leasing broker who's the best in that area who can give the most amount of time towards leasing the building. If it's, hey, I really want to sell, I've paid it off, I don't need this anymore. Sure, that's another great idea. You could sell to an owner user where there might be more money because someone, a doctor, can probably pay more than just a investor
Yeah.
for that space. Typically, when they're vacant, if they're not full, if they were built out, you probably have a better shot at getting someone in there for that particular use. But again, it can be tricky on the situation. I mean, in my opinion, again, it's about your financial situation. So
Yep.
if you need the money, sure, sell.
Mhm.
You don't need the cash that it provides today. I personally think the way you build long-term wealth, even though I'm a breaker, is you own as much real estate passively as possible. The mentors and clients of mine that are the wealthiest, they own a lot of real estate, and a lot of them, because they buy so much, they don't even pay taxes. Because you can do a cost segregation study. You can fast forward the time of your depreciation. Again, I'm not a financial advisor or CPA or accountant, but if you work with the right broker and the right team, lawyer, CPA, advisor, and you fast track your depreciation. I mean, I have a client who buys $20 million worth of real estate a year just so he pays zero in tax.
Mhm.
He's in California, so taxes there are super high. So, again, there's a lot of different tax strategies used and used. And I'm a huge fan of, look, bring the building to the highest and best view, lease it out to whoever you can. If you're like, well, I can take the money out of this and go exchange, do a 1031 tax deferred exchange, and go into another property that brings me more value faster, then that's a great idea. But if it's the cash out, I'm not the biggest fan because Uncle Sam is probably going to get the money from you, depending again on the situation. Just so you know, 1031 tax deferred exchange for you guys out there. You can sell your property and not pay taxes if you sell your property, or once you sell your property, you get 45 days to identify the next property. You get 3 properties to identify in the 45-day window from when you last sold the property. And then you get 180 days, 6 months, to buy one of those 3 properties. So if you buy one of those 3 properties, again, they have to be like kind or better. So $1 million deal, go buy $1 million or more.
Gotcha.
If it's less than $1 million, they call it's a $750,000 deal. The IRS, or Uncle Sam, however you want to look at it, can tax you on the boot. Boot is the difference. So that's $250,000, 250,000. The IRS can tax you on that. But again, I would talk to your CPA accountant, because there's all different things going on for depreciation and your cost basis. So there might be ways to get out of that depending on what they suggest. But again, if you're selling and not cashing out, I highly recommend doing the 1031 exchange.
Yeah.
If you're like, well, okay, I want to cash out, I don't want to deal with real estate anymore, then you'll end up paying the tax, which, again, every situation is different. But in my opinion, the long-term wealth is built on passive income and building it up.
Well, Brian, this has been great and very informative. I think a mark of a good podcast is when we got more questions and we keep on going. And I'm hoping that our audience will reach out to you to ask some of those questions. And if they need help in any of these things we talked about, that you could help them out. And I just like, anytime I have a guest on and I know that it's like, look, you can only dive into so much. You need to hire someone that's an expert when you're going to make these big decisions. We're not talking about, $100 decisions here. Like, these are big decisions for your future. I got lucky. I didn't have someone like in my corner in 2013, but it worked out. It thankfully, but I look back, there definitely were some mistakes, but it didn't hinder me too much. Knowing what I know now, I would want someone like you in my corner. So how could our audience reach out to you?
You guys can look me up on LinkedIn. My name's Brian, last name's Wine, just like the drink, W-I-N-E. You can also find me on the internet anywhere. Just Google me. My company's called The Wine Group. We sell both practices and real estate. So the Wine Group, re.com or ewgpa.com. And my phone number is 323-609-4405. But again, you guys ever have questions, no matter the level, if you're a beginner to intermediate to advanced, I welcome all questions. There's no stupid question. That's what I'm here for. That's what brokers are here for. So we're here to help you guys get to whatever the end goal is.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And if you want to make the shift from busy, broke, and broken to time-free and cash confident, or you just want to continue with the exponential growth, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com. Look at the MCM Mastery tab, watch the short video on there, and check out what we are doing now for evidence-informed chiropractors. We are equal parts coaching and marketing done for you. Yes, you shoot some videos, we help you with campaign strategies and ideas and really become a thought leader in your community. You shoot those videos, you send them to us, we produce, edit, and brand them to you. Then we distribute them through all of your channels. We also take them and we turn it into one good blog per month. And every other month, we have Darcy Sullivan producing a robust blog with a topic that you pick from her database to help with your SEO. So we essentially become your content marketing agency to make sure your practice is always having ethical, elegant content marketing to help grow your practice. On the coaching side, we also help you with everything from marketing ideas to business, communications, finances, anything practice growth, and really try to help prevent you from being stuck on that island. And we hold you accountable. We have a great group of doctors that are just doing amazing things, and we look forward to help you out to take that next step in your practice. So again, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com and learn more.